All right, we're almost through our Battle Brothers. We've got the Wolf Brothers left, and then I'm going to take one last step and talk about the Battle Brothers vanilla redesign along with the Custodian Brothers. So it's been a lot of work working on these Battle Brothers factions, and one of which is close to my heart because I did play Space Wolves for a number of years. I always loved the Space Wolves army. Um, and it's not my favorite of armies lore wise, but it is something that I definitely got into when I was younger. And I still just have a fondness for the army. And we're going to talk about Wolf Brothers. Wolf Brothers are, I think, probably the worst of the Battle Brothers redesigns. Worst of the original Battle Brothers because of their sort of very wonky special rule called counterattack. And we'll get into that as well. So with that in mind, let's get into it. This, like I said, getting into the Wolf Brothers redesign as well. I want to make these just a little more concise, but hey, do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, and comment. After this, working on Dark Elf Raiders as well as Havoc Brothers to try to finish off the year. So let's just give some assumptions that I always make talking about competing against other official or competitively balanced lists. I always try to shoot for about roughly around an A tier for these armies. If you look at my tier list in the past, I am going to be redoing a tier list for 3.4. I just don't have enough information yet. I still need to get more reps to get to sort of feel that I can make a fair tier list. We're going to assume about 5 or 6 games in a GT. That means that you do have to have a level of consistency. Your army can't be one of these armies that relies on sort of high rolling, because in a 5 or a 6 game GT, you're going to have a game where you're going to roll low, and your army still has to sort of function like that. I was always thinking about 3,000 points, and no allies just for simplicity's sake. All right, so I think the criteria that I'm building, and it could change as I play more 3.4, but my modified criteria still includes flexibility with a strong playstyle, still includes raw efficiency, so that you have, I would say, several units that it's not that you can't have hybrid taxes or pistol taxes, but you need several units that are very efficient to sort of balance out that. You need a good spell list. Spell lists got buffed in 3.4, so now they're even more impactful. Impactful elites is very important for a GT. You need consistency. You need cheap chaff. Chaff is just extremely important in this game, so you have to have both. Multiple meaningful upgrades. The upgrades that I think are just going to be really solid in 3.41 is Advanced Tactics. Got a slight buff by losing, they subtracted 5 points for it. Still great. AP4, although it got a nerf by increased points, it's still very good. I think the AP4 spam is still very good, and it shows you how powerful AP4 was previous to 3.4 whenever it actually cost less. Caster 3 I think is now actually more important now that they've buffed all the level 3 spells. I actually think that Caster 3 is more important now than ever. Regeneration effectively got an indirect buff. That's because that they nerfed they both nerfed Poison especially and Rending by increasing their points. They basically count in that, especially Poison. So Regen got an indirect buff. Scout and Ambush continue to just be 2 very important parts of the game. Warning Cry, I think, in armies is now, if an army has Warning Cry, I think it's just a clear advantage, because with the ambush meta, and I do call it an ambush meta in one-page rules, Warning Cry is just a great counter that's very cheap that you can bring that can really mitigate some of that some of that ambush going on. Finally, undead and morale mitigation is just very important. We've gone on to this several times, just especially for consistency in a game. You have to have your army have a way to be more consistent on morales. So let's look at Wolf Brothers. So Wolf Brothers, they do have a very strong playstyle. I think that they're an army that isn't bad. I call them a B tier-ish army. It's one of these armies that are very hard counter armies, so that you're sort of playing like that. You're playing with the ability to just sort of, if any army can do hybrid units, it's Wolf Brothers, because you just never want to charge. You just walk up and shoot stuff, and then you just wait for the counterattack. Counterattack, I think Wolf Brothers to me is one of the worst design armies. It is such a wonky army to just deal with and play with, because depending on who it is such a weird, wonky, hard counter army that you'll be either overpowered or you'll be incredibly crappy against more shooting-based armies. It's the sort of army that I really don't like of the official armies. It doesn't have a lot of raw efficiency, but if any army is going to handle pistol taxes or hybrid taxes, it's this army. It's got a pretty good spell list. It does have some impactful elites, not so great on the chaff. It's better than some of the Battle Brothers in that it has the wolves, but still not so great on the chaff. On the meaningful upgrades, it's gotten most of them except Warning Cry, and it does have some morale mitigation. I think that Wolf Brothers, well, let's just get into it. So let's go look at the redesign. The first of things is I am going to cover the custom armies. I'm going to, again, make these Wolf Brothers, my custom army, distinct from the other Battle Brothers. I want to make some of the units more efficient. And I'm also just, on all the Battle Brothers, removing this Veteran upgrade. So the Veteran upgrade has just been problematic, and it's not a very efficient upgrade. I think if we can ever get to a point that the calculator can correctly calculate the Veteran upgrade, I think it's fine. So for now, just in all the custom armies, I'm just removing it altogether. I don't think it's very useful. So we'll get into the custom army, and then afterwards we're going to get into a competitive list. So for now, let's look at the custom army. Alright, so here we are at the competitive redesign. Here, I've actually updated it today. I've been tweaking this army a while. Wolf Brothers, I want them to be sort of very similar to their playstyle for Space Wolves, and I'll talk about how we can do that as well, that I've added in the upgrades. They are, historically, to following 40k lore, one of the most different from the Codex Astartes. So this army, a lot like the Knight Brothers, is going to be a lot different than the traditional other Battle Brothers factions like Dark Brothers and Blood Brothers, which, you know, are a lot more similar to a traditional Space Marines. And by the way, I go back to that. I think it's important that the lore matter, that these armies do play similar to their 40k equivalents. So I've kept that in mind. For the spells, we've just got a +1 defense. It's a nice little level 1 spell to give a +1 defense to a unit. Level 2, I've got a -1 in fighting and melee for AP. I think that's a pretty good one, especially since there are more armored Armor 3 a lot in the army, and Armor 2 for their vehicles. That -1 AP is going to be pretty nice. And finally, I've got a Feral Charger's Impact. So I think the Impact is really good for them. This is an army that's gonna, as you can see, they've got 2 hand-to-hand buffs. Well, 2 buffs, but a hand-to-hand debuff and buff. And so I think this is an army that's going to play a little closer, and that's to benefit basically their special rule, which I've changed. So the biggest thing that I've changed, I'll open up the Wolf Destroyer here. The biggest thing that I've changed here is I've switched out their, I called it Tooth and Claw, but with 3.4 I've noticed that a lot of the custom named rules are just breaking. So I brought it down to Pierce. And I think this is a nice, slight hand-to-hand buff for its units. This hand-to-hand buff is going to work much better on infantry units than it is maybe their monsters. And so it does, the special rule does slightly lean into more of a ground and pound army as well. So that's the new one. I think it's a really solid one as well. Still works with the army, but also still allows them a lot of flexibility. So here for the Wolfmaster, the upgrades are very similar to the rest of the Battle Brothers. I've just given them a Ferocious, which is a +1 to melee, so they do have a slightly more melee focus, but the rest of the upgrades are very similar here. That's just the Wolfmaster Destroyer. The Wolfmaster Brother, again, very similar to the other ones where he's got the slight Ferocious, just giving him a slight upgrade as well. The HQs haven't changed much from the Battle Brothers other than their own. I've tried to get each Battle Brother faction their own little special upgrade along with the standard ones. The Wolf Mage is, Mage Destroyer is the same thing, giving him the extra casual one and the resistance. Actually need to remove the Aegis because that's resistance as well on this this guy. And also the Wolf Mage Destructor as well. He's just got the, he can go a heavy pistol and energy staff. Again, I try to do this with my casters. I try to limit their, I want my casters to be more limited in their upgrades. So I've just given them the ability to either have an energy staff or an energy sword. So that's the HQs. And then we have the Wolf Elite Pathfinder. So the first thing I want to do is I want to follow up the lore, and in the lore for Space Wolves, their scouts are actually their veterans. So again, it's showing you, we want to differentiate these Battle Brothers. We don't need them all to have the same units and stats. And to sort of follow up on that, the Wolf Brothers, their Pathfinders actually have that higher quality, which has some pros and cons, right? They now have a more expensive character, but that character can do a little more with that quality 3. Again, he's got the same upgrades as the other one here, just a slight tweak. I won't go into their upgrades because they're going to be very similar here. Let's get into their core units, because this is going to be one of the biggest difference with Space Wolves. The first thing is we got Wolf Pathfinders, which again, according to Space Wolf lore, are the veterans, so I give them their quality 3. So their Pathfinders are already sort of serving a separate purpose. Again, they all come with the standard Pierce, which is on a 6. They're going to get an extra AP 1 hit. Give them a slight advantage in hand-to-hand, but also not costing a lot. The Pathfinders are coming with Warning Cry as well. One of the things that I want, one of the differentiators I have in the Wolf Brothers army to match Space Wolves is Warning Cry is actually available on a couple of more units. This sort of matches their lore. If you remember, they used to all have those canine senses, so I did want to give them a little more access to Warning Cry. The rest of the upgrades are pretty similar as well, but again, giving them... The Wolf Pathfinders are sort of more expensive at 160. They're not really chaff anymore, and I think that's cool, right? That you have their Pathfinders are really going to fundamentally play different than most Pathfinders and Battle Brothers because they are more expensive, starting out at 160. You can get them down maybe to around 130, but these guys are really not chaff. They're quality 3, so they're a lot more of just a sort of a mainline unit. Then we get into the Wolf Brothers here. I think the Wolf Brothers, I've always felt that Grey Hunters for a while have been outshined by their other units. So I want, effectively, their Standard Brothers to be very useful. And the way I did that is I've made Standard Wolf Brothers to be a lot more versatile. The first thing I've done is in a lot of the Space Wolves units, you can now mix and match a lot easier. So they don't all have to have pistols or all have to have rifles. You can actually mix in a few pistols in there. The other thing is I've knocked down, they can't get the Blaster Deadly, but actually I've upgraded it so they can get two basically specialized hand-to-hand weapons in Energy Sword or Energy Fist. They can also get 2 heavy rifles, so 2 specialty pistols, and they can also get 2 specialty rifles. Of course, just one of them, to match. They're not going to get double flamer or double fusion, but by doing so, they're going to get a lot more flexibility. This Standard Wolf Brothers is very much a deviation from the standard Battle Brothers because it's a lot more flexible. You can play them hand-to-hand, you can play them shooting, you can go a little both, you can do a lot with this unit, and I really like that, basically giving them an extra close combat weapon. But to balance that out, as you can see, they don't get heavy weapons. So again, we are deviating from the standard Battle Brothers factions. Their Grey Hunters don't get heavy weapons, it's all close range. The other thing I'm doing is I want to sort of play off this idea of the Wolfpack Battle Leader, and in their armies, they actually get a Sergeant upgrade, which I think matches with sort of the Space Wolves, kind of their Wolfpack leader. And so I didn't want to give these guys just a tough 3 model. I felt that was too much. So I just gave them, all the mainline units are all getting these Sergeant upgrades. So actually, these units, you can have one guy in there who's sort of that Wolfpack leader who's, going to be hitting on 2s. So I thought that was a nice little upgrade as well. Just making the Space Wolves army a lot more versatile here, but also providing some limitations. The rookie Wolf Brothers are very similar. I did give them the Def 3 because that's how Space Wolves work. They're Grey Hunters are their scouts are in power armor. So again, that's what the Wolf Brothers do. They switch out. Their Pathfinders are more experienced, but they have a less experienced sort of hand-to-hand unit. They got the Pierce and the Furious. I didn't change too much from the rookie Wolf Brothers. I felt they were good, so the upgrades are going to be very similar. Then we've got the Wolf Destroyers. The Wolf Destroyers are, I would say, a pretty big change in that now, unlike a lot of other Battle Brothers units that either have to switch everything, they actually can just go a lot of mix and match. They can have some with assault rifles, some with storm rifles, some with energy claws. So this ability is sort of similar to the Wolfgar, where it's a lot more flexibility in how you can build the unit. It's not just it's any and all those units here. So that's a slight change as well as I give them a Sergeant upgrade. So these guys can also that Sergeant is going to make these squads just, a little better and differentiate them a little more. Here, the Wolf Destroyers, really nice. I then have the Wolf Mage Brothers. This is a specialty unit in. I've tried to give every Battle Brothers faction a specialty unit, and this is their Mage Destroyers, which do come with Aegis, and they also get their daggers, and they get their, so these are these Reaping Daggers. This is I forgot what they're called, but they are a Mage Hunter unit in the actual 10th edition book. So I did give them that unit to match. Werewolf Brothers, I've kept very similar to what they were. I thought they're just sort of good as is. I did split up so that they can just be very flexible in how they organize things. 155 is a really solid unit for Pierce and Regeneration, Fast and Fearless. Just, yeah, I mean, Werewolf Brothers are great, and I didn't change a lot of their armament. I think their armament was good. Wolf Sport Brothers are, again, very similar. I didn't change them too much. They're just... they're probably one of the armies I didn't change a lot. Hunting Wolves I did tweak, where I actually pulled out the regen. So this is sort of their quasi-chaff. They can just run 5, but I also gave the Hunting Wolves Warning Cry as well. So for the Space Wolf army, I'm giving them a little more access to Warning Cry in the form of their Hunting Wolves. So just tweak them to make them sort of a semi-chaff unit. The Giant Wolf Riders stayed very similar. I didn't change too much other than just making some assault pistols to help with the pistol attacks, but these guys are just generally didn't change a lot, and they're just good as is. The Wolf Brother Bikers, again, didn't change a lot with this unit. It's very similar to what it already was. We then got the Wolf Pathfinder Bikers, which sort of match the quality 3 on them. So those armies are pretty similar here. The Wolf Attack Speeder, so a lot of the vehicles are pretty similar to what they were. The Attack Speeder and the Support Bike are going to be basically matching what they were, just with their Pierce upgrade for anyone that has an attack. For the Wolf Heavy Exosuit, again, nothing has really changed a lot. I think for the Wolf Attack Walker, the one thing I did give him a Walker Axe. So this is a 4 attack, AP 3, Deadly 3, and Protected. So this is sort of a unique Space Wolf upgrade. So again, I want the Walkers to have I want every one of the Space Wolf Battle Brother factions, I want their heavy Walkers to all be slightly different. So for the Wolves, I've given them just this Walker Axe, which is making him a little more of a deadly, tough specialist here. So that's just that one. The APC and the Wolf Attack APC are very similar. I'm not going to go too much on them, along with the Drop Pod and Battle Tank. These vehicles are very similar. I didn't change too much on them. Didn't change the artillery gun too much. Yeah, the vehicles are very similar, other than some slight upgrades to the Attack Walker. It's really the troops that really differentiate the Space Wolf army, or the Wolf Brothers here. I think this army, I've tweaked it a little while. I'm going to give it, I'm actually going to try and play this army soon, but I think it's a pretty solid one here. This sort of closes out a lot of my Battle Brothers. I'll redo, because I did change the vanilla Battle Brothers up a lot now, so I'll go through that as well. So let's get into a competitive army list. Alright, so looking at what would be a competitive army list. One, I've got just a Wolf Master Destroyer that I'm running just with an Energy Fist and a Shield Wall. So he's just going to be a really tanky unit. Just 1 HQ and no spells. I didn't do any spells on this one. I've got some Wolf Pathfinders here that I've got with just close combat weapons and assault heavy pistols. I've got the Warning Cry running on them. 120 is pretty good. Like I said, they're not that bad. They're a little pricey for chaff, but they're still in that chaff range. I've then got some Wolf Brothers. I've got them. Actually, I just have them with 4 plasma rifles, so I could have done hand to hand. This is just sort of a mid-range squad that's going to be shooting with a lot of heavy rifles and those 4 plasmas. They also have that regen on them. I think I got some Rookie Brothers. Got them running with just their dual energy claws, along with their just assault heavy pistols. 310's a pretty good squad, especially the quality 4, but you got the Furious and the Pierce there to sort of counter that. I think of the Wolf Destroyer, so this is the big squad. He's actually going to be running with the Wolf Master Destroyer is going to be running with them. The Master Destroyer does have this Ferocious, so in hand-to-hand, these Wolf Destroyers are going to be hitting on 2s. And I have them with I didn't give them the Shield Wall. I could have. I instead went with the Assault Shotguns. That's just to give them a little more versatility. And they're just rocking, 6 Energy Fists or Hammers. So this is my stomp something into the ground unit. They're going to ambush in. This unit will kill a Hive Lord. it'll kill a lot of stuff. And that's what you need. You need units like that that can just one-shot Hive Lords. So that's what this unit's here to do. It has now it is a little more squishy, but those assault shotguns are going to be pretty good. That if it gets charged, they're going to be able to sort of back off and shoot with their shotguns. Yeah, they got regen as well. Some Werewolf Brothers, yeah, they got the claws. I went with the claws and maybe just one. So I've split it. I've got some with the reliable and rending claws and some with the AP1. So it's a little split, some rending, and I've got some AP1 in the squad. 335 is pretty good for them. Yeah, really solid, especially with regen and pierce. Just a really good combined squad. So I've got some Wolf Support Brothers. Kept them pretty basic, just 6 heavy machine guns. Yeah, I mean, I think that 450 for them, just, you know, and sort of an all-around squad with 6 heavy machine guns. Then got some, so I got 2 Hunting Wolves. They also have Warning Cry. So in this army, I've actually got 3 units with Warning Cry. That's just going to be a lot of ability for this unit to just deal with ambushing. The other thing I have here is a Wolf APC. I think this is actually a really good upgrade. This attack APC that I have with the Twin Heavy Minigun, that's 8 attacks at AP2, 315 is great. Tough 6, Def 2, it's got a transport of 6. So if I need to, I can run what I'm thinking is that the APC is mainly going to be, if they need to, run in with the Wolf Support Brothers. It sort of depends. I can put in the Hunting Wolves, I can put in the Pathfinders as well. Yeah, just the ability for this APC. Now, it can also just go off on its own, right? Just, you know, it can be annoying. It's got some long-range firepower. Hey, 8 attacks, AP2 at 24-inch range. It's sort of just expensive enough to be difficult to deal with, but if it does die, 315 isn't a lot. So I actually like this attack APC. It gives a lot of flexibility to the army. All right, yeah, so this is, I'm going to try this actually out in another game. But yeah, so that would be a competitive list. Hey, thanks for watching. Would love feedback on these armies. These armies are, again, all still in their alpha and beta test phase. I don't consider these armies to be complete. I'm going to be playtesting these armies with friends. Hey, like, subscribe, and comment. Send me your custom army lists. I can always review them. I'll just, give my feedback, and, that's just what I'm here to do. So let me know. Hey, thanks a lot.